and we're going to talk a little SEC baseball, who we think can make it to Omaha and ultimately win the College World Series this year. Then we'll wrap up with a little NFL draft talk since that is currently going on right now. So let's dive right into some SEC baseball. Kevin, what series this weekend has you interested the most?
So I really like the Georgia Ole Miss series. Ole Miss is one of the hottest teams in the league right now. You know, if you go back 4 weeks, they got swept at home against Mississippi State. Since then, they've won 7 out of 9. Uh, won a series at Florida, swept LSU at home, and then won a series this past weekend. So playing really good in all facets. They're getting timely hits. Pitching has been really good. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday pitching. So they've been playing really one of the hottest teams in the league over the last 3 weeks. And then obviously Georgia's the team that's in first place in the league. They've got good pitching on Fridays and Saturdays with Voco and Vieg. Vieg's been, to me, their most consistent pitcher. Their bullpen has been, to me, their what has kept them winning series. And again, Georgia's only lost one series all year, and that was to Florida at home. Other than that, they've won every series they've played, which in the SEC, when you're through 6 series, they won 5 out of 6 series. That's pretty strong and speaks to how well they played. And I think their bullpen has been the biggest key to that, along with their, look, they're the best hitting team in the SEC, had 9 home runs against Arkansas just Sunday, not in the series last weekend. Some might have had 9 home runs in a 3-game series. That was just Sunday. So kind of diving a little deeper, look, Ole Miss, Hunter Elliott, Cade Townsend have been really good Fridays and Saturdays the last 2 weekends. Now, when I say that, I mean game 1, game 2. Townsend's really been good. He's pitched a lot of shutout innings the last 2 weeks. And then, Tyler Rave has actually been pretty good too on Sundays. With 6 innings, I believe, a no-hit ball against LSU. And then, a good again this past weekend. So the pitching matchup, can Ole Miss for 3 straight games hold Georgia's lineup, 6 runs or less? Because I think to beat Georgia, you have to pitch really good and you have to play good defense. Ole Miss is also really good defensively. So that series to me intrigues me. It's at Ole Miss. And, when I break it down and I look at the nights, I think I'm going to give – and game 1, it's hard for me to predict in this one because Elliott's been good and Voco's been good for the most part, but he's had a couple of weekends where he's not been as good. They lost game 1 last week to Arkansas too. I think Ole Miss is going to get game 1 in this series. I'm going to come back, though, and predict like I did last weekend. I think Georgia with Vieg, again, I think he's one of the better game 2 starters. But look, Townsend is too. I think Georgia gets game 2, and then when you get to game 3, I think Georgia will hit the ball very strong again, and the bullpen with Georgia will piece it together. I think Georgia gets 2 out of 3 in this series. But, again, this to me is my favorite series of the weekend. I think it could go either way. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I love the bats in this series. Daniel Jackson leading the SEC, hitting 388, 20 home runs. Then you've got Trey Phelps, who's hitting 380 with 14 home runs. You look at Tristan Becerra and Judd Utermark, 19 and 17 on the home run front. You've got, in my opinion, 4 of the best power hitters in the SEC playing this weekend. And that Friday night game, I actually think I still like Georgia to win 2 out of 3, but I lean the other way. I think they get game 2 with Townsend over Hunter Elliott, who Hunter Elliott's been good this year, but definitely not the season he had last year. He's walked a lot of guys. His ERA is still, good at 3.78 in SEC play. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Georgia to take care of this series. Yeah, they're probably the best. Well, they're first in the SEC, but aside from maybe Texas, Texas A&M, it's not even close to the teams behind those three.
I would agree as far as the top three teams, and there's nobody playing better right now than Texas A&M. I think you have an interest in them.
Yeah, that's my favorite series this weekend is Texas A&M at Florida. Florida is 10-8 in the SEC. A&M sitting at 12-5. And seeing A&M last weekend in Baton Rouge, man, they've got 9 guys who all take phenomenal at bats every time up. You've got their 8-9 hitter and Bear Harrison and Boston Kellner, who are, walking far more than they strike out, kind of catalysts for when you get 1, 2, 3 back up in Grahovic, Sorrell, and who's Hakopian, the second baseman. So the way they hit the ball, I'm just looking at their starting lineup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've got like 7 guys hitting 300, and all 9 are at least a 380 on base percentage. They're firing on all cylinders. You've got Aiden Sims, who's looked great on the mound. Moss has been up and down, but looked better here of late. And then Gavin Lyons, their kind of ace out of the bullpen, sitting at 7-0 in 18 appearances. This is a Texas A&M team that I think is probably one of the best they've ever had. You look over to Florida, Blake Sears, a guy that I doubted going into the season, battled some injuries. He's got 9 home runs. I believe 6 of them are in SEC play. I think he's hitting about 370 in SEC play. And you mentioned the Hunter Elliott, Cade Townsend duo on the mound. Aiden King, Liam Peterson is right there with them as the best duo in the SEC. So
Absolutely.
I like A&M to take 2 out of 3. I think they lose game 1 when Aiden King's pitching. And then I think they can get a win against Liam Peterson, who has pitched well, 71 punch outs in 50 innings with 27 walks there as well. And he's got a 1-3 record. So if you can get to the end of him in, the 4th inning, early 5th inning and get that bullpen in, you can have a lot of success against this Florida team. So give me the Aggies to take 2 out of 3. Who do you like, Kevin?
Yeah, so I Texas A&M again. We talked about Ole Miss being one of the hottest teams. Texas A&M is probably the hottest team in the SEC right now. Sweeping LSU at LSU, winning the 2 games against Texas that they played. Those games were at home. They're really good. And you mentioned how deep their lineup is. You didn't mention 2 guys on the bench that are hitting over 300 with Blake Binder up and Wesley Jordan, depending on if Jordan's healthy or not. So very deep hitting team that, can really put runs on the board. We expected this team to be dominant last year and they had the injuries. And they're actually deeper this year with Kellner, Partido, and the lineup, Wilson, and just really a good team. And so I think Texas A&M right now is the strongest team in the SEC. I do agree with you. Florida gets game 1. I like A&M in game 2 because Aiden Sims, I think, is A&M's best pitcher, and I really like that matchup with A&M against Peterson. And then when you get to game 3, I just think the lineup is so strong. I don't think you can contain A&M unless there's 2 ways you can contain A&M. If you got a really good pitcher that is on that night, or if you throw 3 or 4 arms for 2 innings apiece, when they're seeing good pitchers one time, but you let that team get a pitcher and they get to see him 2 or 3 times, just like they did with LSU on Saturday with Schmidt. Once they get that second, third time around, they make the adjustments. They really hit pound the ball. So I like A&M in this series to win 2 out of 3. And again, it's going to be interesting to me to see if they continue to play as dominant as they have. No weaknesses on this team. Again, they can hit for power, hit for average, and they're showing quality pitching. And you mentioned the bullpen, um, and Grant Cunningham. You did mention, but again, you mentioned the one that's been the biggest impact. But Cunningham's been solid too. Just a really good team, I think. I think we're seeing the Texas A&M that we thought we would see last year. The coaching change made things questionable, but Michael Early is definitely settled in now, and he has his team playing very well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What I know you have another series or two that you like a lot this week. Who are those?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw 2 series out here real quick. Um, let's start with Oklahoma Auburn. And the reason I like this series is I think Auburn has, the best starting pitching in the SEC, and the stats show that. And then at times, Oklahoma's starting pitching has been really good. Mercurius has been good all but 2 weekends, and so he's their number one. He can face Alvarez for Auburn. That should be a good opening game. And if Mercurius is on, I like Oklahoma to maybe get that game. Then you get into game 2. Um, Definitely Auburn. Marciano is going to be the stronger pitcher there, but Cam Johnson has a high ceiling, and maybe he's on, and that's kind of how he's been. If you can get him past the second or third, he's going to give you 6 strong. The question is, can he get you that? And then you get into Sunday or the third matchup, which will be Sunday this week with these 2 teams. You got Cord Rager against Alex Petrovic, and both these guys are guys that before the season you didn't hear a lot about, but have been solid pitchers. Petrovic has been really solid for Auburn, but Rager's had some good games. So I like the pitching for both of these teams. Oklahoma's not been as good on the mound as they were early, but they do have the ability to go out there. I like Auburn. I think Petrovic gets the win Sunday. So I would pick Auburn to win the series 2 out of 3, but I do think Oklahoma has a shot at getting game 1. And with the ability that Oklahoma has in the pitching staff, they could, pull off an upset. I don't see it happening, but they could. And again, Oklahoma's got a good lineup with Willits, Brendan Brock, Gamble, Cam Johnson at third base has been good all year. So they've got a good lineup that can put it together. Auburn's got, Rembert, the McCrane brothers, Freilich, Bob Terrell, who they set down, but then, played him finally, put him back in Sunday. They set him down Sunday, put him back in, and he homers. So I like Auburn lineup a little bit better overall. But I think it's an interesting game just because both teams have quality pitching staffs. And then the other series I'm going to talk about is Alabama, Tennessee. Simply because of the rivalry and they're playing in Tennessee. Alabama's honestly been a little better team this year so far than Tennessee. And you got Tyler Fay and Upchurch and then Zane, can't think of the last name all of a sudden.
Adams.
Zane Adams is as their number 2 guy. They've been solid all year as a staff. And then Tennessee, Mack was really good on pitching in the 2 role, but since he's been moved to the number 1 role, he's been hit a little bit. Last 2 weekends, Tegan Coons has pitched really well. Pitched a lot of shutout innings for Tennessee the last 2 weekends. And then Sunday, Tennessee's been kind of up and down with that piece. So within that series, again, and Tennessee's bats have still been inconsistent, where Alabama's been a little better to play. So in that series, I'm going to go Alabama game 1 and Alabama game 3. I think Coons will stay hot and maybe pull game two for Tennessee. But I think I'll go Alabama 2 out of 3 in that one. But again, a series that could see a lot of games that are competitive and back and forth. Should be a lot of passion in that series. Tennessee's got to win some games. They need to win 2 out of 3. It's a home series. They need to win 2 out of 3 in this series too. Uh, or they're going to be on the outside looking into the tournament. And so that's why. And again, Alabama, I think they're going to be in the tournament. But they're playing to, can they be a 12, 11 overall seed? I don't think they make it in the top 8. Your thoughts on these two series?
Yeah, so love what you said, Alabama, Tennessee. I love Alabama to get game 1 and game 3 in this series. But I want to talk about Auburn. You only like them to win 2. I'm pulling the brooms out on this one. And Oklahoma is a team that I have liked. You've been really high on them all year. I like them a lot after seeing them opening weekend down in over in Arlington. But this Auburn team is just different. They've battled injuries in the field. You lost Chris Rembert at times. You've lost Bristol Carter at times. Cade Blue has been a here and there piece. Bub Terrell has missed some time due to performance and due to being a little banged up. And man, every time they call upon another freshman, these guys just step up. It really doesn't matter who Auburn puts out there in the field. They filled the ball cleanly and they hit the ball, which is all you can ask. And in this pitching staff, I mean, Alvarez, who was kind of moved into a starting role here recently on the weekends, still pitching pretty well, below a 2.0 ERA. Jake Marciano with a 1.9 ERA, 77 punch outs in 56 innings. He's been electric for him. And then you talked about Petrovic, who has, been really good, 2.8 ERA, 58 punch outs in 54 innings. And I like their bullpen with Jackson Sanders, who was a starter at the beginning of the season, has moved into more of a bullpen role and has really been a big help to this team. I know they lost a pitcher. Was that, I think, Drew Whalen from Western Kentucky early in the season. So they've battled injuries both in the field and on the mound. And all Auburn seems to do is find a way to win series and win games. 10-8 in the SEC. I think they are probably going to get to, I think they finished at like 17, 13, 18, 12. They've got a phenomenal RPI. So I think they're going to be a team that is a top 8 seed when it's all said and done. I want to talk about one more series that interests me some. That's Texas and Vanderbilt. Texas is traveling to Nashville this week. And man, this Texas team sitting at 11-6 in conference play. Took 2 out of 3 against Bama last week after losing 2 of 2 to Texas A&M the week before. These guys are ready to get back out there. They had a game canceled on Tuesday due to weather. A few of the guys that I love, the freshman Anthony Pack has been great all year, hitting right around 350. You've got Aiden Robbins in center field, who's hitting like 370 with 15 bombs. Carson Tenney, the Notre Dame transfer catcher. A lot of people were wondering if he was going to cut down on the swing and miss this year. Well, he's struck out 40 times, but also walked 37 times. So pretty even there. And he's added 14 home runs while hitting 330. You've got Casey Borba at first base, Ethan Mendoza, who still hitting 275, who feels like he's in a major slump right now after he hit about 360 last year. Their pitching staff, they might have the best weekend rotation. I know Auburn's stats are a little bit better, but I love Volantis, Ruger Riojas, and Luke Harrison. If I had to pick one team's weekend rotation to take, it would probably be the Texas Longhorns. Then you look over at Vandy, who sitting at 9-9 in the SEC. They've played some really bad out of conference teams and lost to some really bad out of conference teams. You know, North Dakota State, Central Arkansas, Indiana midweek. Um, really, really soft schedule in the non-conference outside of that. Arlington Globe Life Shriners opening weekend. Man, it seems like, their bats have been good all year for the most part. Those few games where you've seen the bats on fire and the pitching click, this team looks unbelievable in those games. Brody Johnston, the sophomore, he's got 13 home runs. He's hitting 367 on the year. Their pitchers have been up and down. Connor Fennell he's thrown 57 innings, so he's going about 5 1/3 each game. Losing Austin Nye was a big blow early in the year. A part of me wants to take the Commodores in this series, but similar to A&M and similar to Georgia, I've got to roll with the Longhorns. I think the Longhorns are actually going to pull up a road sweep this week and take all three in Nashville. I know Commodore fans don't like to hear that, but I'm sorry, guys. That's what's going to happen this week. What do you think of that series, Kevin?
Yeah. So, what makes this series interesting to me is there's times Vandy's hit the ball really good. So let me start with Friday night with Valentes against Fennell. That's all Texas. You're right. Texas has the best staff, I think. Um, Auburn's been coached up very good, but Texas has the best talent arm wise. Um, and again, Valentes is one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. Him or Valencia's from Mississippi State. But so Texas wins game one. Now you get into Saturday, Sunday. And again, Vandy's pitch has been up and down all year. But I do think they're going to have a game between Saturday and Sunday where it is a 15-10 type game where both teams hit the ball well. That ballpark has become a very friendly hitter's ballpark. So I think Vandy's going to get one. I don't think Vandy's going to win the series. If I had to pick a day, I think it'll probably be Sunday. They've had some really high-scoring Sunday games. Kentucky recently beat Tennessee in a high-scoring game, lost to LSU in a high-scoring game on a Sunday, but won a high-scoring game Saturday. So I think that's kind of where you get into with the Saturday-Sunday piece. And I think Texas wins the series, but Vandy gets one. Texas keeps rolling. To me, it's going to be really interesting between like the top teams, like we mentioned. Texas, Georgia, A&M. Right? So Texas and A&M are a half game behind because they played less. Full game in the loss column, so a game and a half back. Can they close the gap? Does Ole Miss happen to pull 2 out of 3, and they can? And does Texas and A&M win their series to make this, a half a game between those 3 top teams? Because I think they're very close. I think you could see that. Again, I like Georgia to win that series, but I would not be surprised in the least to see Ole Miss win it, and then Aggie and Texas win it, and you go into the last 3 weekends with essentially a half game and tied in the loss column between those. That would be my thoughts there.
Yeah, and then one more series that doesn't have quite the profile that it's had probably since the early 80s this year. That's LSU, Mississippi State. Tigers traveling to Stark Vegas for this series. To me, these are the 2 most storied programs in the SEC for baseball. You had Skip Bertman at LSU, won 5 national championships. You had Ron Polk, who seemed destined to never win one, kind of like maybe the Arkansas coach now. But those, Skip Bertman way ahead, number 1. But when you get down to the second best coach to do it in SEC baseball, and I'm going to exclude, guys who are currently coaching now, Ron Polk's the next best to have ever done it in the SEC. He basically built Mississippi State. So we have to talk about this series. LSU is 6-12, Mississippi State's 10-8, number 15 in the country. So everything favors Mississippi State this weekend. What do you think the Tigers need to do though to be able to get a series win, or is that even within the realm of possibilities this week?
Well, obviously their starting pitching's got to be really good because Mississippi State can throw three guys out there that can beat you with Stone, Valencius, and I mean they're good. So Evans has got to pitch good on Friday night. That's almost a tough matchup to win there. And Smith's got to pitch good. I really like what a couple of games what LSU's done on Sundays with like Sheeran and again I think they have enough in their bullpen that they could pitch. With Fontenot, Sheeran, different guys that they could piece together in that Sunday role. Paz giving an inning. I think Sunday they can be competitive. But besides the pitching has got to be really good against Mississippi State. They've got to, some of the young hitters have got to come through. Now they did the other night in the midweek game. The young guys hit really well, but obviously with Jake Brown out, these young guys have got to come through. Braun's got to hit the ball well. Cerna's got to hit it well. Look, Aaron Beatty, I trust him. He's maybe the best hitter right now when you look across what he can do: home runs, RBIs, extra base hits, average, and that. Milam's got to play solid, and you're going to need a solid game, just from the whole team defensively. You can't make errors, so they got to play solid baseball, which that's not been LSU baseball this year. Great place and great environment, probably the best environment in the SEC in Dudy Noble. You mentioned Ron Polk. Totally agree with you. He's a legendary coach. Wrote a book about how to play the game that if somebody hasn't read, you should order it and read about it. Fundamentally, it's spot on. Teaches you how to, when the ball's hit here, where should everybody go? If you're backing up a throw and those type of things. To me, he is one of the best coaches to ever coach college baseball. The Will Clark team with Palmero and those guys should have won one that year. It's tough, it's tough to win one. And not only did he win at Mississippi State once, he retired, came back, and did it again. So he's a great coach. I think Mississippi State wins this series. I think they'll get 2 out of 3, possibly a sweep. But I do think I also think this. One of the things for LSU that's been missing is a spark and just really playing with passion, with urgency and an urgency to win. And I think you saw some of that the other night with the young guys. So I think with the younger guys playing, Patrick in right field had a good game. I think you're going to see them get either game 2 and 3 in this series. I don't like game 1 at all, even though I think Evans can pitch good again, but against Tomas Valencius and that lineup and that field, that's a tall hill to climb. But I think they get Sunday or Saturday or Sunday. I think they get one of those 2 games. Mississippi State wins the series though, 2 out of 3. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanna go back to Ron Polk's book. We're not a Ron Polk infomercial, but I will say if you coach little league baseball, travel baseball, that is a book that you have got to read as a baseball coach
Yes.
in lower levels. Honestly, if you're a college coach, you should probably read that book too. That's how big of a fan I am of that book. But to get into this series, I think, LSU's got to do all the things that you mentioned, right, to have a chance to win this series. And I think it comes with winning Saturday and Sunday. So I think to put themselves in position, you've got to play competitive Friday night to have a chance Saturday and Sunday. If you lose 9-2 on Friday, don't think you have a chance to win the series. But if you lose like a 5-3 game or, a 4-3, very close game. I think, you've got a little momentum. You don't feel terrible about how Friday went. Of course, you'd want to win that one. But I still think William Schmidt is the most talented pitcher on LSU staff. It started to click at times. A lot of times there's errors committed behind him that gets in his head a little bit. So if you can play some clean defense on Saturday, Schmidt doing his thing, you've got a chance to win that one. And then if you can get to Sunday 1-1, you've got 7 or 8 guys in the bullpen who can pitch. Sheeran's the best. I would prefer to see Gavin Guidry used in the middle innings for an inning versus going in the eighth and having to pitch the eighth and the ninth. So LSU, I think, has a chance. I'm with you, though. I think State takes 2 out of 3 in this series. And then just for fun, we have 2 more series in the SEC this week. We've got Kentucky and Carolina. And I'm gonna take Carolina to win 2 out of 3 in this series. They have seemed like a more together team since the coaching change. Amp Phillips is still maybe one of the better pitchers in the SEC, especially from the stats metric. He's got a 2.5 ERA. He's averaging about 5 innings a game, little over. 59 punch outs. Not a huge strikeout guy, but opposing teams are only batting 199 against him. He is out. I mean, Jackson Jelkin is the best pitcher in this series, and he'll go on Friday against maybe Gunther. I don't even know who Carolina's rolling out on Fridays, but I do know on Saturdays they roll out Amp Phillips, and that gives them the best chance to win. And then I think on Sunday, this Kentucky team's battled some things on the mound. You had Ben Cleaver, who was their Saturday guy to start. He got pulled from the weekend rotation. They tried to start him. It was either this week or last week, midweek.
This week.
Yeah, 33 pitch 1 inning, gave up like 4 or 5 runs and was done. I think there's more to that story, maybe some arm issues, because Cleaver was one of the best in the league last year. But I like Carolina to take 2 out of 3. The bats are working a little bit better now. Will Craddock, the freshman, he's hitting about 285 on the year. LaCroix and Scobie are hitting better in SEC play than they were outside of it. Any thoughts on this series, Kevin?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think Kentucky wins game 1 in this series with Jelkin. I think he's the best pitcher out of any of them. But I kind of agree with you. I think there's just something off with Kentucky the last couple of weekends. And I don't like them on Sundays at all. And, Harris didn't pitch last Saturday. I'm like you. I like Hill on Saturday for South Carolina. I think South Carolina is a little more hungry playing at home. They've been very competitive in some series. Almost took the Arkansas series. Played very competitive, last couple of weeks. Swept Missouri. I think they're going to get 2 out of 3 with Kentucky too. I totally agree with you on that.
And then the last series of the week we'll talk about is Arkansas at Missouri. And guys, we're in the bottom of the 4th inning right now, and Missouri holds a 3-0 lead over Arkansas. Josh McDevitt, 7 punch outs through 4 innings. Given up 1 hit and walked 3. Man, this Missouri team is playing really good baseball through 4 innings so far. So, with the skewed metrics at this moment, or the skewed notion of Missouri up 3-0, what are your thoughts on this series? Can Mizzou get it done at home against a really talented Arkansas squad?
Well, if they're already up on Dietz, and again, I would have picked, before this game started, I would have picked Dietz and Arkansas to win tonight. But if they're already up on Dietz and McDevitt's, struck out 7 through 4, I'll go ahead and go Missouri tonight. But I do think Arkansas bounces back and wins the next 2. It's a series that's Arkansas is 9-9. They don't need to lose this series. It's really a series that coming into it they needed to sweep, be 12-9, and in a position to finish 17-13 in the league, and be in the top 10 and try to get a good seed. And I don't know if they're going to do that. I think it goes back to 2018. We talked about this early in the year that since 2018, Van Horn's been at least 18-12 in the league. So I don't think being 9-9, I don't think he's going to go 9-3 in the last 12 to do that. So I think they'll lose that a little bit, and I don't see him finishing them in the top four, obviously this year either. Um, but I do like them to bounce back with Fisher on Saturday and their lineup and what they can do hitting wise. I know you've been right there with Missouri all year, and I've been picking them to either lose a series or get swept. So I'll give them one in this one. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I give them one as well. And what I dislike about this season for Missouri is they are a much better baseball team than they were
They
last.
are.
It's not showing up in the record book. The stats are much better. I still think that Drew Dickinson as their pitching coach may have been the best addition for a team, for a coaching staff in the SEC, for where it's elevated their pitching staff this year. It's unfortunate that they're 3-15 in the SEC, but they are a much better baseball team this year. They've been much more competitive in all games overall. So hate to see it for Carrick Jackson and the Missouri Tigers this year. Yeah, I'm taking Arkansas to get 2 out of 3 in this one as well.
Let me agree with you here too on not to just agree, but on Missouri and their pitching. They actually do throw competitive guys out there Friday, Saturday, Sunday in games 1 through 3, more so than some other teams. They have 3 competitive starters. I would put their starters over Bandy's. I would put their starters over, even though they got swept by South Carolina. I don't know. That's probably not fair. I'd go South Carolina. But again, you take Jelkin out of the Kentucky lineup, I might take their starters over Kentucky. But they put 3 competitive starters out there. I would certainly agree with that, and they are more competitive. They've done more this year to compete than what some teams have. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely agree there. So I want to shift our focus for a minute and let's talk about going to Omaha, something that I don't think we're going to get to do with our team this year. But if you had to
Nope.
pick your top 3 teams that you think are going to make it to Omaha this year out of the SEC, actually, let's go 1-1 each, and we'll do like a three
Round robin.
three draft. I'll let you take the first team though.
All right. So again, to me, you've got to be a well-rounded team that hits the ball, has good pitching, has a good bullpen, plays good defense, all those things. And the team that I'm going to pick right now in this, I'm going bullpen with this. Good starters, potentially an excellent number 2. Best lineup to me, 1 through 9. I'm going to go A&M first.
Okay, I like that. I'm gonna stay in the state of Texas here, and I'm gonna take the Texas Longhorns. Possibly the best weekend rotation in all of college baseball. Brought a bunch of guys, brought a few guys in from the portal, returned some good bats. So they'll be my first pick for Omaha.
So if I'm going to go with my second pick for Omaha, this may surprise you a little bit, even though you like them. And again, I've liked them all year too. Again, I'm. It's to me when you look at this team's pitching staff, they have 4 guys that can start, and they have a good bullpen, good defensively, especially up the middle, and again have enough good bats to win. I think when you get to the regionals and especially super regionals, when you got to win 2 out of 3, you got to be able to trot 3 good starting pitchers out. So over Georgia, I'm going to take Auburn with this pick.
Oh, dagger in the heart right there. Auburn is my number one team to make it, but I felt like Texas wasn't going to be around in round two. So yeah, Auburn is a team that I'm with you. I like a lot. So I guess give me the Georgia Bulldogs as my second round pick here to make it to Omaha.
Okay. Uh, you know, it gets a little tougher when you get to 5. But I say that, and then as I'm sitting here looking at this, to me, it's a clear. The one that I like the best at 5 is a clear choice to me. Again, based on they can roll out 3 good starting pitchers. They've got a good lineup. They're playing good defensively. Again, this is probably going to surprise you, but I got to take the way they're playing now and advance that out. I'm going to go Ole Miss 5.
Yeah, that's the best pick left. I was gonna go with Mike Bianco too. So, man, I'm gonna go with a guy who has been to Omaha multiple times, won there before. Give me the Florida Gators as my third round pick here. They've got a really good 1-2 punch in the rotation with King and Peterson. So that I like them more than Mississippi State or Oklahoma or Alabama right now. And Arkansas is another team that could get there, but give me the Florida Gators as my third round pick. Now let's go with a team that we truly think can win the College World Series. And I'll let you go first here.
Well, again, I'm going to go with the same one I picked first because that's the reason why I picked them. Is I think they can actually. I think they're the strongest team with a chance to win it. I think A&M is the strongest team right now in the SEC. I like Texas a lot. I like their 3 starters, but again, if you got outside Volantes, I think A&M can match them. I think Aiden Sims is an outstanding number 2, and I think Sadao can be a good one. I like their bullpen. Moss is solid at 3. He's not dominant with their bullpen, but man, with their lineup and the decent pitching and they're good defensively, I think A&M right now is the best team in the SEC. So I'm going to stay there.
Well, I'm going to take your second round pick, and the Auburn Tigers is the team I think can get it done next to A&M with Texas as a close third. Those would be my top 3 teams to win this year. But I love everything about this Auburn team. I mean, got to root for a Tigers team when my Tigers aren't playing well, it seems like. So give me the Auburn Tigers as my pick who can win a national title. Something that has never been done in Auburn baseball, I don't think, and certainly hasn't been done in a major Auburn sport in quite some time. Think what their last football championship was Cam Newton days, if I remember that correctly.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so yeah, give me the Auburn Tigers and any other baseball thoughts before we move on from baseball.
Well, let me just say one thing about Auburn there. When you look at Omaha, the one thing that always stands out when you get to there is teams that have outstanding pitching is most likely to win there. It's a pitcher's ballpark in Omaha. It was proven out last year with Anderson and Ianson, with LSU winning. So I think to that point, if Auburn gets to Omaha, that makes them a very dangerous team with the pitching staff that they have and the depth of the pitching. Texas may be high end better, but I think the depth of the pitching in Auburn is better. And so when you look over a 2-week period, that makes them very dangerous. And then one last thing that I will say, neither one of us picked Mississippi State, but that's a team that I still think their best baseball that's not been played if I don't know if it'll be played, but if they do put it together, they have a lineup that could be very dangerous with Teal, Reese, Bevis. They've got a lot hitting. Bryce Chance. They have a lot hitting and they have a lot pitching. If they put it together, um, they could make a run.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they would be after the six that we talked about. You throw Mississippi State in. I don't know if I would extend the list past those seven to make it to Omaha,
No,
unless
it stops
it
them.
just went absolutely perfect. And I'm talking Cam Johnson returns to junior and high school Cam Johnson and can dominate at that level for Oklahoma. But yeah, those seven teams are all teams that I think have a good chance to get in. I did see in the most recent projections, did they have Mississippi State or Ole Miss as a 2 seed playing against Southern Miss earlier in the week?
I didn't look at it earlier in this week. They've had State as a 2 seed, pretty consistent. Ole Miss obviously might have played their way up, but
Which
I have been looking at it pretty much on a regular basis. But I did not look at it this week.
that is absolutely wild to me. Southern Miss, really good baseball program. If you send either of those teams to Hattiesburg to play in a
Hattiesburg.
regional, you cannot. That should never be done to pit, two really good programs like that. If you're gonna have one of those teams as a 2 seed, you got to send them somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both teams are too strong to be a 2 seed at that point because I think both of them could still finish 15, 16, 14, 15, 16, which is a 1 seed somewhere. And I don't think either team is out of the hunt for that. Again, I think Ole Miss right now would be interesting somewhere between 13 and 16. And I don't think you can rule State out. I mean, again, let's look if State sweeps LSU this weekend. They're probably back. Not that LSU is great, but again, just the amount of wins that it gives them. I think it puts them back in the hunt. So yeah, that would be that's no way that matchup should happen.
So let's shift focus. The NFL draft's going on right now. As we're speaking, there have been 12 picks in the draft. I want your instant reaction of 1 through 12. What has been the biggest overreach in your position?
Okay, so let me go biggest overreach, and then let me go surprise pick that I think is a great pick. Just watching this and looking at it, biggest overreach to me, without a doubt, is Carnell Tate to the Titans as a wide receiver. Well, he is a wide receiver from Ohio State. He's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a late first round pick, but they essentially made him the first wide receiver off the board, and I just don't see that. Um, I like Jordan Tyson better, who was taken later, and probably others. Again, to me, that's a head scratcher. Jeremiah Smith, who's a great receiver, might have been the number one pick if he was draft pick eligible this year. If he's on your team, you should be dominant. And I think Tate was really good. But I mean, you've got all that. I don't know. I just think that's a huge reach. I do not see Tate paying off as the fourth pick. And then the pick that I think is the biggest surprise, simply because nobody had him going this high. That also being said, the team that picked him always drafts well. We've seen him play. His technique is outstanding. He ran a 4.340 on his pro day. Monsieur Delane getting picked by the Chiefs with a six pick. Nobody had him going that high. Most teams had him going, most people that watched the draft and all that had him going 10, 11, 12. Still highly picked, but nobody had him. And the Chiefs traded up to get the sixth pick to pick Delane. I think he's absolutely the best defensive back in this draft. Technique wise and things, I think he's going to be outstanding. He can play zone or man. I loved watching him last year. He took guys off the field. The only wide receiver that gave him fits was Concepcion from A&M. That was a good offense, very well, with Craver and that. And just again, we talked about him the other night with the offensive coordinator and what he did there. So I love Delane to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs just keep proving why they are so good year after year. Trading to get him in that pick. Carnell Tate would be I just think I way overreach. Delane would be the guy that I surprised picked by the prognosticators, but I think he will absolutely be an all-pro by his second year and have a lot of good years in the NFL. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you on Mansour Delane. Going sixth. I still think that is you could argue that he should have gone higher. I know the draft experts didn't have him, but I think he could be the most impactful defensive player in this draft. There's one more guy that I like a lot, and that'll be my surprise pick, but I love Delane. My bad pick here. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. Drafting a wide receiver. I do think Jordan Tyson is better than Carnell Tate, but I still would not have taken him with the eighth pick. My value pick is who I would have taken, or my surprise pick is who I would have taken eighth, and that's Caleb Downs, the safety who's going to the Cowboys. He and Mansour Delane are, in my opinion, the two best defensive players in the draft, and definitely in the defensive backfield, the two most ready to immediately impact the game. From an instinct standpoint, Mansour Delane is probably the best. From a football IQ, I think Caleb Downs is the best. So Caleb Downs going at 11. I know he was slotted a little higher, I believe. But what a pickup for the Cowboys. As much as I dislike giving them credit for something, they did well here. So, eager to see what LSU guys go next. Any thoughts on who you think could go high for the LSU Tigers this year?
I think from here it's just a wild card from here out to see who's drafted next. Let me say something too on Downs. He's a defensive impact player. Saints should have definitely picked Downs at 8 because he's a guy that you can do different things with at safety. He's a good enough athlete. He can definitely cover tight ends man to man, and some wide receivers he can cover, and he can also blitz and make an impact. He's an impact defensive player. You can bring him down the box. You can do so many things with him as a safety. Um, I would compare him just on his ability to impact a game. Maybe not quite as aggressive, but he's pretty aggressive. But his ability to impact a game, I would go back to like Troy Polamalu for the Steelers. So I think Downs should have been taken by the Saints. It just makes no sense to me. When you got an impact defensive player in front of you, you can get a skill position later, second round or whatever. Interesting too, Ty Simpson just went to the Rams. I like that pick. I like Simpson. I'm a Steelers fan. I was hoping he would fall and they might take him. And the Rams head coach, good offensive coach. That's a good pick. That is. So going back to LSU players, a lot of talk about Nuss. I don't know. I do buy into all the things that they've said about the injury stuff and it impacted him. My question, though, is I just think Nuss has always been a little bit – I think his talent is there. I think his arm talent is there. I'm just not sold on his ability to play well in big games. Just never saw it outside, I guess Clemson, but, you look at how Clemson finished, and LSU was not great offensively that night. He did play a good second half, and he made some key throws. So if I was an NFL team, I would not take a chance on us, but somebody's going to with his arm talent. I think you might even see him go in the second round, as a quarterback. Perkins, where does he go? I don't know. I think Perkins is probably a fourth or fifth round guy, but you never someone might get enamored with his pure speed and his talent. He's kind of that guy that everybody thinks I can take him and I'll figure it out, play him somewhere and figure it out. So does he sneak up as in the third round? Again, I don't think so, but that's the two that I think you could see jump up just on based on their talent. Nuss had a good Senior Bowl. A lot of teams are talking about him. We'll see. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a different LSU player in. AJ Halsey, I think, will be the next
Oh yeah,
Tiger taken. There's just not a lot of Tigers, and he is. I think he slotted in as the fourth safety. I really think that he could slot in at the 2 or 3 spot potentially. If you talk about potential game changers, even though LSU didn't have the season they wanted, man, he was all over the field and involved in so much. Perkins, the athletic abilities there. I just, man, it puzzles me that Garrett Nussmeier is probably going to be the third quarterback taken in this year's draft. But then you look at the guys behind him. Drew Aller, who didn't play much this year, got hurt.
wouldn't
Carson,
take him.
yeah, Carson Beck, a guy who I'm not
Wouldn't
not
take him.
overly impressed with. Talon Green, nope. Cole
No,
Cole Payton from North Dakota State. Don't know enough about him, if I'm being honest. Luke Altmaier. I kind of like now he might be the guy who piques my interest the most on this list. And wasn't anything crazy. Then you go to Baron Morton from Texas Tech. Really just kind of a game manager for them, in my opinion. Really, when you then you have Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, Cade Klubnik. No, thank you. I kind of like Joey Aguilar from Tennessee. He's a guy who excites me in this quarterback class a little bit. Haynes King would maybe be next. Not a lot of quarterbacks that excite in this draft class. Jalen
no.
Daniels at the 14th ranked quarterback or 16th ranked quarterback kind of excites me a little bit. If you get him in like the 6th round or 5th round, it just, man, really soft quarterback class this year.
I think from here on, you're drafting people that are going to be backups. So I would take the North Dakota State quarterback or Haynes King over any of the rest of them, including Nuss. And I agree with you. Nuss is probably going to be the third or fourth guy. But the only thing I would say about that is, and we've talked about this, what in the world was Trinidad Chambliss thinking?
Yeah.
I mean, he could have been in the first round, early second round. He clearly would have been the third quarterback taken in this draft. And, got enamored with NIL money. It's just such a head scratcher to me. Such a weak quarterback draft. I just think if he would have went through all the testing and everything, interviews and stuff, he would have been the next guy, and he's going to come out next year, and that it's a very strong quarterback draft next year.
I I
What a mistake.
honestly believe that Trinidad could have given Ty Simpson a run for his money for QB2 in this class. And I like Ty Simpson, but I really liked Trinidad this year. It makes absolutely no sense for him to go back to college. You're not going to be coached as well on the offensive side of the ball this year. So yeah, I mean, you 13th pick was Ty Simpson. You could be looking at somewhere in the top 16, 17 picks if you're Trinidad, if you would have gone in this year, which is crazy because he could be outside of the top 10 quarterbacks in next year's draft If he
Yes.
if he doesn't, I mean, if he has a year like he had this year, he's going to be fine. I don't see it. The Ole Miss faithful definitely see that. Yeah, very, very interesting decision. And I guess in a year from now, we'll probably be talking about that decision, whether it was good or bad. So any other draft thoughts? I have one more. Man, there is an SEC wide receiver on the board that whoever gets him is getting a guy who heck of a season last year in the SEC, got snubbed I don't know how many times for SEC player of the week, and that's KC Concepcion. Honestly, if you were taking a wide receiver at pick 8, I know KC's down there. I would rather him than either of the two wide receivers taken so far in this draft. I get that he's a little lower rated, but I think he has a better NFL career than either of those guys selected ahead of him so far.
So my Steelers, my favorite team, still have a pick, coming up, and I would love for them to take Concepcion. Um, they need a wide receiver. A lot of talk about free agent wide receivers. But if they were going to take a wide receiver in the first round, I would love for them to take them. And then I guess the only other, again, I just would talk about um, the Steelers with their pick coming up. And there's the potential also of them taking an offensive tackle. Monroe Freeling would be who I would like for them to take, the offensive tackle from Georgia that really has tested well. 4.9 40, 9.9 relative athletic score. So started 13 games at left tackle for Georgia last year. So I would love for them to take Concepcion, but if they don't, you can't ever go wrong with taking an offensive tackle like Freeling if he's available at that slot when they pick. So we'll just see.
Yeah, so yeah, gonna be an interesting next couple of days. Do the Steelers full wild card on us and take a quarterback in round 1? That would
With who's
be
left? With who's left? Please no. And they have talked to us. Please no. And don't look. Take good players. They took Kenny Pickett a couple years ago with the first pick, wasted that. Take the best player available. When that quarterback is available, you take him. That's probably next year. The draft will be deep. You sort it out. Find a team that's not as good. Make a trade with them now to get their number one next year. Do something in that manner. Please don't go reaching for a quarterback. It's just a wasted pick if the guy's not there, and there's nobody. Again, if you're taking someone to be a backup, fine. But the Steelers took that last year with Will Howard. I'm as a fan, I'm good with Will Howard being on their team. He's 5 years from now, he'll be the backup, and he'll win you a game coming off the bench. So I think Will Howard has potential, but he's not going to be the number one. But don't reach and take any of these guys. And I'm not going to lie, my fear is that they take Nuss, and I'm just going to scratch my head because I just don't see it. Nuss doesn't like pressure as far as in your face and things like that. Look, the NFL is a league that gets after the quarterback. So please no. Please no.
I really don't think there should be another quarterback taken until round 5. I know that won't happen.
I agree.
But I don't give a quarterback left in the draft better than maybe a late round 4 pick. But
Yep.
I know you'll probably have a couple, 2 or 3 taken in the first 75 picks, 2 or 3 more. So gonna be interesting to monitor what happens in the rest of the draft here. So that's all I've got on the draft. Anything to add before we wrap up?
Nope. Let's see, how this weekend goes with the baseball series. Ruben Bain taken there by the Bucks. It's a good pick. Bama's up, I think 9-4 on Tennessee. Looks like they're in control of that game. Um, where we saw some separation between the best teams in baseball in the SEC, I think we'll continue to see that this weekend. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we get into next week, we'll talk more college football, spring talk, Oklahoma, Texas, those type of things next week. Look forward to that.
Yeah. One more thing on baseball. Josh McDevitt, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 10 punch outs for the Missouri Tigers. What a game for that guy. Yeah, we will see you back here for sure on Tuesday, possibly even Sunday night. So remember to like, follow, and